Hi everyone. Hi. I just recently started my PhD. I know, but I'm still here. You know, it's been a month, so it's all good. But I'm doing my PhD in epigenetics, and for those of you who aren't familiar with epigenetics, it basically looks at how your lifestyle and how your experiences and how external factors change your DNA activity. So that's not your DNA code, that generally doesn't change, but the DNA activity, so which genes in your DNA are switched on and off. So what does this mean? Well, this means that I get to pretend like I can tell everyone how to live their life all the time and tell them exactly what they should and shouldn't do in order to prevent early death. But today, it's a little bit different because I'm going to be talking about how actually none of it is your fault. Yeah. None of it. Because your ancestors have put little assassins in your genes, little epigenetic marks from their shitty lifestyle choices that have persevered and live on in you. I thought, the BBC did a really nice documentary about the ghosts in your genes, about epigenetics, but they should really, talk about the assassins. So basically how they're gonna kill you. Now, I thought, in order to kind of illustrate, I'd take you through my own family tree. And for reasons of, identity protection, stuff like that, I've changed their faces. That's not what they look like. So in genetics, we talk about the different generations as being F0, F1, F2, F3. F3 is me, and everyone's a generation back. So, there are prime times in your life where you are prone to epigenetic assassination. First is when you're in the fishbowl, that is the human womb. So technically, if during pregnancy, that is a time when the fetus is really, really vulnerable to epigenetic changes. And actually, if the mother is pregnant with a girl, then the eggs that will give rise to the next generation are also being formed in the womb. So whatever the mum does here is going to have an effect. It's going to leave little epigenetic assassins, both in the baby and in her eggs. The second is a slow growth period. And for girls, this is up until the age of 8 to 10 years old. And for boys, it is around 9 to 12 years old when the sperm niche starts to form. Because once the sperm niche is formed, it kind of sticks that way. So all the sperm that you create during your lifetime will have been modified in response to that period. And finally, at the point of fertilization. First assassin that I want to talk about is your maternal great-grandmother, or mine in this case. So my great-nan is Dutch, and she actually, while she was pregnant, she was exposed to the Dutch hunger winter of 1944, where adults were reduced to about 400 calories a day, and lots of people starved. However, because she was pregnant, during that time with my grandmother, this will have activated a gene called IGF-2, which is a growth gene. And this means, ladies and gentlemen, that I now have an increased risk in cardiovascular disease and gut cancer. Technically. Second assassin I want to talk about is your paternal granny, so your dad's mom, I guess. If your grandmother was exposed to a food shock, say a sudden period of famine, starvation, or sudden overeating, then this will have caused X-linked epigenetic changes. And we know that it's X-linked because it's only via the paternal line, and your dad gets his only X chromosome from his mom, so therefore girls aren't affected because they have both, and boys get it because they only have their mom's X chromosome. And this means that I have 2 times the risk of death by cardiovascular disease. Thirdly, paternal gramps, so dad's dad. If during the slow growth period, 9 to 12 years, he overate, frankly, this will have caused a variation in one of the microsatellites in the insulin gene. And this shows that you can get a 4 times the risk of death by diabetes. finally, assassin number 4, Dad. Yeah, you see, everyone only ever talks about what women should do in order to, protect the baby, but frankly, Dad also has a lot to do with it. So, Dad. During fertilization, my dad smoked. Thanks, Dad. You didn't know. Smoking increases DNA fragility, which means, as is implied, risk of death by mutations. And ladies and gentlemen, that's cancer. So, I want to play a game of your fault or not your fault. Let's have a look at some things that might or might not be my fault. Death by irrational fear of bananas. Okay, hear me out. So you're on a desert island, and there's shark-infested waters all around you. You're stranded. You can't get away. But the only thing that's growing on this island is bananas. Unfortunately, you have an irrational fear of bananas. Therefore, you either stay on the island and starve to death, or you go into the water and are eaten by sharks. Ladies and gentlemen, your fault or not your fault?
Your fault.
Your fault? Wrong. Not your fault. No, they did this really, really cool study with mice, and they actually did this thing where they shocked these mice every time that they were exposed to a certain scent. And so after a while, these mice would then associate that scent with an electric shock. And so even when they then exposed the scent to the mice without the electric shock, the mice got really, really panicked and basically developed a phobia. Now, they found that this phobia was actually transmitted through the olfactory genes to not only the next generation, but the next generation after that, and the generation after that, even though those generations had never experienced an electric shock with that specific smell. So, maybe your granddad or mum had some kind of bad trauma with a banana, and that is why you have an irrational phobia of bananas. So, not your fault. Okay, moving on. Eating yourself to death in front of the television. Your fault? No, okay, I'm hearing it's a bit divided here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, it is not your fault. Frankly, they did a study and it showed that if your grandmother and your mother, or your mother, had a high-fat diet, that it would actually increase the expression of this gene for the ghrelin receptor. Now, regardless of whether you're full or not, every time that you see a good advert with lots of food, ghrelin is released into your stomach, and it's kind of like the hunger hormone. Now, if you have increased receptors for this particular hormone, ghrelin, then it means that you're going to be super sensitive to any kind of food advert on TV, the waft from from someone else's house. So therefore, you are going to overeat in front of the television and die that way. That's not your fault. And finally, being eaten by a bear while trying to take a selfie.
Your fault.
Your fault. You got it.